Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I've got a ridiculous video for you guys today. So I've been out protesting the COVID-19 regulations, and I wanted to tell you guys about this wild experience I just recently had with a guy who decided he didn't want us there protesting. He wasn't, in a position of authority. He just kind of came down to harass the protesters. But before I tell you the story, I wanted to thank everybody who's been supporting the dope campaign that I have been pushing on YouTube and on Twitter. You guys have been super supportive in purchasing the safe to eat cookie dough. I'm really appreciative of everybody who has been purchasing from them. They're a small business that's really been hit hard by the coronavirus shutdowns. So thank you guys so much for supporting them. And if you guys want to continue supporting them, check out the link in my bio. I also have a promo code for you guys, $10 off of any of their products. So check that out in the link in the description. So back to the story. The story goes, so this is now the second protest I've been to that I'm talking about, and at the time of this recording. So we go down and there's not that many people there this time. They did not have a very good PR crew. Like people just didn't know to come. There was a lot of people that wanted to come, didn't know that it was happening, didn't know that there was a specific time that it was supposed to happen. So the problem was, if nobody knows, then nobody's going to show up to protest. And that's not through the fault of anybody other than the people organizing the protest. Just didn't have the resources or it seems even the know-how to get the word out that they were even going to be protesting. So there's only about 6 of us out with signs, and basically what happens is I walk up to the group of people. There's like 4 or 5 of them up there with signs, and there was a guy that was with them who I wondered, is he part of a group? He seemed like he was being a kind of antagonistic a little bit. And there was another lady who was like an older lady who's holding a sign, and she was kind of, seeming a little aggressive with the guy. And so it seemed like the guy was harassing her, and she was trying to get him to back off and stuff like that. So initially, as I'm walking up, I'm like, do I need to intervene? Because this guy is harassing her. This is seeming confrontational and all the rest of it. And I noticed that the lady ended up going back to standing on the side of the street, holding up her sign and not talking to the guy, kind of ignoring him. And he didn't continue to approach her. He just kept standing there. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna intervene. I'm not gonna say anything. Italian temper, cool down. That's how this goes. And basically, this entire story is what causes the Italian temper to rise and fall. And so my Italian temper fell, and I just kind of walked up and approached them. And so one of the ladies saw me coming up, and she says, "Would you like to make a poster? Would you like to hold a poster?" And all that. And they had markers and poster board and all that kind of stuff to make posters with. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to make posters. So I get down in the grass and I'm making my little poster. It said something like, tell Gavin Newsom we want our freedom, or something like that. I'm going to have to remake the poster anyway, because it wasn't, it was rushed and it was hurried. But the reason why it was rushed and hurried is the guy who had been harassing the ladies saw another guy down the street a little bit, and he decided to go and talk to that guy. And so he walked all the way down the street. That guy was kind of alone, separate from the rest of the group, kind of doing his own thing on the corner. But he still was supporting the same cause, holding up a sign and all that. So he walks down the street to talk to this guy. And so he's kind of leaving the rest of the main group alone. So I'm making my sign and trying to fit the letters. I write bigger than the poster board and trying to alter everything, fix it. It's too small, now it's too big, and all the rest of it. And I'm getting frustrated because I'm in a hurry and I want to just, get out there and protest. And the guy apparently was in some sort of a confrontation or kind of an antagonistic conversation with the other guy down the street, because he was poking at him and I want to talk to you. The other guy said, no, I don't want to talk to you, leave me alone. And then the guy was like, no, I wanted to, what are you what's this freedom you're talking about, whatever. I didn't really hear most of the conversation. I only found out about some of it later, but they clearly did not mesh. And so then the guy comes back up here to continue to kind of antagonize those of us in the main group, which again is 4 or 5 people. I think 5 people including me. So he's up there and he's kind of, at this point, I'm new, and I came into the group kind of What people don't really understand about my personality is I'm actually pretty reserved with people that I don't know. So approaching strangers is something I struggle with to this day. And so I come in and I'm kind of meek and I'm kind of timid and all the rest of it, because that's just how I am when I'm in a situation where I'm not familiar with people. The guy was introduced to Subdued Kelly. And so he's over here watching me, put my sign together, waiting for me to finish writing it out so he can read it, kind of hovering over my shoulder, waiting so that he can basically pounce on me and harangue me about it. Meanwhile, I'm getting a little bit tense because, again, I'm just getting frustrated. I'm kind of in a more, I'm on my knees putting this poster together in the grass. I'm in a more vulnerable position. And I don't really like being in that position where a guy is kind of hanging over, my back, looking over my shoulder while I'm trying to do something. It just was not a very comfortable position to be in. And obviously, having seen him harass the other people protesting, he was going down the street to make sure he had harassed the guy down the street and all the rest of it. So it was getting kind of awkward. And I knew that there was going to be some sort of a confrontation between me and this guy, because he was, up to no good. I don't even think he was there to be like a counter protester as much as just to harass people, because he didn't really have a point of being there, to my knowledge. So the other guy from down the street, I actually knew. I'm not going to reveal how I knew this person, but I actually knew him. And he comes up and he says, "Hey, this guy was really rude to me. I would recommend you not talking to me, addressing me," he says. And that set the harassing guy off. It set him off. He's like, "What do you mean I was rude to you?" Like, he's actually getting aggressive at this point. Like, "What do you mean I was rude to you? How could you say that? What did I say that was rude? What did I say that was rude?" And the other guy's like, "I don't want to talk to you. Just leave me alone." And he's like, "What do you mean? That's what I'm talking about. Oh, you don't even want to talk to me. You don't want..." Meanwhile, he's still hovering over my poster and in my space. And I don't know this at this point, but theoretically he's there to... My understanding at the time was he's obviously here to complain about us being out here not being 6 feet apart or not wearing masks or whatever. Yet he is standing within 4 feet of me, at least. And, up in my space, hovering over my shoulder. I'm feeling uncomfortable. So I turn up to him. Now, don't forget, I've been introduced to him, not officially, but his first exposure to me is subdued, meek, mild, timid Kelly. That's what he thought he was getting himself into. Then the Italian temper rose to 11. And I turned up to him and I said, "Could you please get 6 feet away from me? You're in my space." And I said it in I didn't say it in an angry voice, but I had manager Kelly hat on that day. I had my business tone, my do not mess with me tone in my voice. And I could tell that resonated with him because the blood drained from his face and he kind of was taken aback a little. He was not expecting to have pushback and then additionally to have pushback from me. He was expecting to have pushback from this guy, but he was not. This whole deal with me, this was a surprise. And so he ended up stepping back, and I don't think he addressed me at all going forward. But then the other guy kind of went after him a little bit more and was like, "Have you ever heard of Me Too? Stop harassing the women," basically. Because he was going after all, the older lady there. He was going after me. There was only 2 guys there, and he wasn't really engaging with them at all. So it just kind of is a little bit cowardly. I'm not trying to pull the sexism card or the sexist card or anything, but it is interesting how guys like that tend to target women. And, whether they're older women or young women, they're not necessarily... he did go after the one guy, but interestingly enough, after the one guy confronted him, he refused to go near him. And so a lot of the women that he continued to harass after that went over and stood with this other guy, and he would not go near them. He would not go nearby this other guy. And so that just tells me that this guy was a complete and utter coward, because he felt that he had some sort of superiority, or I don't know, he had the upper hand when he was addressing women, but for some reason when he addressed a guy who actually fought back or talked back to him, or even a woman. Like, I talked back to him and I said, get out of my space. And he wasn't, it was like he wasn't anticipating real pushback. He wasn't anticipating people saying, this is unacceptable, get out of here. And just to the larger point of, you know, obviously we were in a public place, we were protesting, and, you know, part of that is people are going to come and counter protest and join in from the other side and say, hey, we disagree with you. That's not what this guy was doing. This guy was not being respectful. This guy was not, you know, staying out of our space, though he was making comments about how, you know, various people weren't standing 6 feet apart and whatnot. But the problem with this whole thing is you can come and counter protest. I'm not against that at all. If you need a counter protest, I'm in favor of a counter protest if you need to do that. But the problem with this guy is he was not interested in counter protesting. He was interested in baiting people. He was interested in harassing people after they had said, you know, I don't want to talk to you. Please go away. Please leave me alone. He continued to engage with people that had asked him to leave them alone. That's not counter protesting. That's actually harassment. And so that's kind of the moral of this story is, if you want to counter protest, that's fine. Come with a sign, make your own sign, come and, you know, stand, you can even stand with the other people, but you can't be standing in people's space. You can't expect people to embrace your ideas when you're coming in aggressively and yelling at people and not being respectful of other people's space. You can't be pointing fingers at somebody saying, well, why aren't you standing 6 feet away from somebody, and then you yourself don't have a mask on, you're standing close to somebody who's asked you to leave them alone. It's just kind of frustrating when people do that. So hopefully the next protest I go to won't be quite as toxic, I guess. The other people in the protest, you know, everybody tries to, you know, have a good attitude, be polite, be respectful. And so the other people to protest were fine, but hopefully I don't have any more of these confrontations, but it made for a great video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like it, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode.